When you ask me, what is love in a spiritual context? All I can say is love is everything.
Hmm.
Love is the reason that we are here. We incarnate on this earth to love and to be loved, and to ourselves be love and radiate that out.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Evergreen RX podcast. I'm your host, Hayden, licensed mental health therapist, Cancer Moon, and the first to get deep at any party. And I am so excited to welcome our wonderful guest this week, Graciela Rasor. She is a modern mystic, multidimensional, creative, powerful person. And she's a longtime meditator, spiritual guide. She does work incorporating breath work, Reiki, human design, art therapy. She is a writer and just all over the creative space, sharing her work to support different projects and organizations for the collective good. And I'm so excited to have her. She's based in New York, so that's where she's coming at us from. And today we're just going to be talking all about love and connection. That's at the heart of the discussion today, and weaving human design and all of the wonderful things that Graciela is so well versed in throughout the conversation. But I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Hayden. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah. So we were kind of talking before hopping on this recording, as people tend to do, and already so much good stuff is coming out. But to kind of give you guys some insight into where this episode, where this conversation is coming from, what my inspiration was, um, you know, part of what Graciela does is she sends out newsletters and shares her writings with the world. And she sent one out about a year ago that was titled On Love and Connection. And it just resonated with me so much. In this newsletter, she talked about how no one is human in a vacuum. And that is something I've said so many times to people in therapy, to people in my life, just bringing in that level of connection and remembering that we're all here sharing this experience together. And she just articulated this idea so well in this newsletter, and kind of bringing the conversation back to that connection and the relationships that we have with other people, because spirituality sometimes can become so um, far flung and like kind of this solo journey and this like self awareness and self growth. And I'm sitting on a meditation cushion and I'm alone in my experience. And we can forget the power that is in connection and love and relationship with others. And so that's where I'm coming at with this conversation. And I first kind of want to open up and ask you, how do you define love in the context of spirituality? And why do you think it is so important to center that can't be satisfied just through a solo journey and deep self reflection and exploration?
Well, thank you for the question. It's such a beautiful question. And as we talk about this concept of love today, I invite everyone listening to really get outside of the normal conception that we have of love. I feel like there has been this kind of shift to feel like talking about love is cheesy, or, needing another human connection is weak. Like, live, laugh, love
Mhm.
gets made so much fun of. But when you really dial it back, like, isn't it amazing to live, laugh, and love? There's nothing else I'd rather be doing.
Oh
Like,
my gosh,
fill
yeah.
my days with living, laughing, and loving. I'll be a really happy person. I'll be such a fulfilled little being on this earth. So that's just kind of a disclaimer that I put out there for this whole conversation for anyone listening. If you're hearing us kick off and we're talking about love, like,
Mm,
it's so deep. When you ask me, what is love in a spiritual context, all I can say is love is everything.
hmm.
Love is the reason that we are here. We incarnate on this earth to love and to be loved, and to ourselves be love and radiate that out. And every single person has that within themselves. It's not something that we have to try to do. That's something
Mhm.
that I've really gotten to see over the years as I've done energy work, as I've gotten to physically be in the room working with people. We have this natural, radiant love inside of ourselves. It's the
Mhm.
heart space. Again, heart, cheesy, pink, silly little
Mhm.
pattern that we envision, this shape of a heart. But it's anything but that. It's so deep. It's so important. It's everything. You're To me, the soul is in the heart, and the soul
Mhm.
is expressed through the heart. And there's nothing more important than that. That is a person, that is a human, that is also a spirit that lives on beyond the human, that is just here for a short time on earth. And that all feels very nebulous. I know I'm really speaking in grand terms here and we're
Mhm.
just diving in, but it's everything. It's everything to me.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you started off by talking about some of the almost like resistance or kind of like eye roll moments that can come up when we're talking about something that can become so cliche, like love and heart and all of that. And I think it's really funny because recently, I mean, I'm noticing even as we're jumping in, how perfect timing it feels like this conversation is just even in my own life. And hopefully, I believe that if it's perfect timing for me, it's got to be really aligned timing for some other people, hopefully the ones that are finding this and listening. And um, so much of what's already happened this year for me, and I kind of consider years as like whatever age I am. So my birthday is in May. So this is kind of the start of like a new year for me. Already pulling cards, thinking about things, love has been coming up so much. The heart space, the heart intuition, like the heart chakra. And I have had things come up where I'm like, oh, the heart chakra, like that's the one I'm like really connected to, or my intuition really flows from there. That's so like boring. Like it's a little bit like basic. It's not like the third eye or the crown, like something that spiritually, which it's funny because I feel like we kind of covet those a little bit too, because they're seen as that deep exploration and meditation and transcendental and going into all these spaces. And it is kind of that solo focus that the heart really exists in this relational realm. And it's become so much more apparent to me how it's a cliche for a reason because it is so important and it's so everything and like omnipresent in talking about anything ranging from like mental health and like psychology to like really large esoteric things and spirituality and this like evolutionary um perspective on why we're here. So I'm so glad that you kind of started there, and I'm curious on how you think cultivating this connection, really bringing the focus back to love, can enhance someone's spiritual journey. It's a big
Yeah.
question.
Yes, it's a big question, but as you were just speaking, I was thinking, well, it's all the same. It's one in the same. I very much like you, when I started diving deeper down my own spiritual path, it was all about the third eye. And if anyone's listening right now and you haven't gotten to third eye, that's okay. The third eye, I really just think of as like that classic intuition, those intuitive hits that you get where it's like, don't get on the plane, or, something's telling you to reach out to someone and you just know you need to do it. That's our classic intuition. And there's such magic in that. But the heart exists in the everyday. The heart exists when we're petting our dog, or when we're smiling at our baby, or when we're even being smiled at by a stranger's baby who doesn't know us but is just radiating love because that's all they know how
Mhm.
to do, because they're just a little human. And so are we. And so the heart gets used all the time. And yet I find that it is still not used enough. Most people, and if you've been to a class with me, if you've basically interacted with me for more than 2 minutes, you've heard me say that most people are walking around and their heart is partially closed. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying this in judgment because I live in New York City and sometimes it's just not safe to walk around with your heart totally open, radiating and, willing everything to come into your being. It's just
Yeah.
not safe. Our modern world is not built for people that want to walk around with their heart open all the time. And that translates into every aspect of our lives. Like, it's hard to be in a meeting and you're on deadline and everyone else in that meeting is in a really heightened state. It's hard to come into that situation with your heart open.
Mm.
Everything in our culture is telling you not to do it. But if you can do it, you will change the energy in that room because the vibration of the heart, if we look at things from the vibrational scale, this is a David R. Hawkins deep dive if anyone's interested in doing it. I'm obsessed with the vibrational scale. Love is one of our highest vibrations,
Mhm.
and love comes from the heart. And you come into a room with fear, negativity, anxiousness, you come in and you just meet that with love and courage, you
Mm.
will transform that room.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, though. Easier said than done.
Yeah, because there is such a tendency. I've been listening to a book by Matt Kahn recently. Whatever Arises, Love That is what it's called. And one of the things that he explains in that is we have this tendency we want to maintain connection, especially like younger, like childhood and stuff. We want to maintain connection so badly that one of the ways we can learn to do that is to lower our vibration to the vibration of the person that we're trying to connect to. So that is deeply human and loving that we're like, I want this, so let me do something that keeps me in connection with them. But actually, what he's proposing, and is a big spiritual teaching, is like, what happens when you maintain your high vibration and other people then get to raise to meet you? And how does that change the energy of everyone you're around and like how you walk around in the world and what you're able to offer to others? And I think something that like you're already touching on, but we really can't have this discussion without talking about is some of the common barriers that people are facing when wanting to connect more deeply. Not only, some of these ingrained behaviors of how we kind of learned to close parts of our heart off to try to maintain safety, or to receive the love that we so deeply wanted. But how we kind of can overcome these barriers is something that I'd really want to hear from you. And this is like the place where I feel like the human design angle is something that really started coming out to me, because I'm sure you can touch on this too and give a little bit more of like a primer on human design and how it works. But I think, there's a potential for using that as a tool, and maybe some other tools or suggestions you have on being able to face these blocks and then see how we can overcome them and see how we can love ourselves through overcoming those things as well.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And when I think about how do we transcend, it's by coming back to our natural state, which is love. So
Mm.
at its most simplistic answer, it's that. That is the path. And how do we come back to ourselves?
Mhm.
That has been kind of my way into all of this and my way of sharing this with more folks, human design. It's kind of the best tool I know for coming back to yourself
Mm.
in a world where we feel like we need tools to do so.
Yeah.
Because I think at this point, I've been teaching on human design for 5 years and I have come to this place with it of it's all within us. It's all within us. And this is just a mirror that you can kind of hold up to help yourself see that it's already within you. And if you
Mhm.
need that mirror, God bless, I'm happy to share it with you. Um, so a teacher once said to me, if you want someone to know their human design, just have them close their eyes and think about what they wish all the good things that someone would say about them are, and then realize that all of those things are already true because they're within you. That's why you want them
Mm.
so badly. But from a more practical perspective, what is human design? Human design is much like astrology in that it's a birth chart that's based on your birth date, time, and place. But it pulls in a lot more energetics than astrology does. It actually pulls in some astrology too. So if you like astrology, you'll
Mm.
love human design.
Mhm.
And it tells you about yourself, tells you about your energy, tells you how your energy is meant to move in the world, how you can go through life being true to your own spirit instead of fighting against it to conform to what you think should be. Very much goes back to what you were talking about with those, that natural tendency that we have to meet the vibration of the group
Mm.
rather than to meet our own vibration, which is a high vibration of love. We humans are so good at tearing down that vibration and
Mhm.
suppressing what is actually true within ourselves. We live in this world of suppressing goodness when our natural state is really overflowing with it.
Yeah. There can be so many kind of beliefs or stories around how much good we're able to access in our life. It's that other shoe's gonna drop mentality. I did an episode a while back about like why do I feel like I don't deserve good things, and it's kind of talking about this like, it's all conditioning, and like me and that, but it's like it takes a while to start to break that down and realize that it's just conditioning that is telling us and creating these fears around how expansive, how good, how loving, how high vibration energy we can exist at. And it feels almost like some of us can start to get into this place of like, ooh, the meter, it's like it's getting a little too high, like I'm running out of this. And that's where that self-sabotage, at least like one of the ways I conceptualize that is like that's where we come in and kind of bring it down. Or because of the connection we're trying to maintain with someone, like bring it back down, because it's hard to believe that we're able to be at that high vibration, to live in that place, to come more in deep connection with ourselves, and thus deeper connection with other people. It Something
Mm-hmm.
about that can feel so scary.
Yeah. Oh man, there's so much that I have to say on that. And the first thing, of course, is that our goodness is never ending because it comes through the heart.
Mm,
And the heart is a naturally replenishing resource. The natural love that we have to give is an everlasting replenishing resource.
mm,
When I do my classes in person, which I definitely want to talk about in person connections because I think there's something there within this spiritual time that we find ourselves in. When I do my classes in person, sometimes I do this really, again, I'm going to say it again, cheesy, quote unquote, thing of getting in a circle and holding hands in that circle. And we connect to our hearts. And through that space, we're able to send energy around the circle, and then we play with it and we reverse direction, sending energy around the circle again. And you might be listening to this and thinking, oh, that's so silly. But I promise you, if you're in that room, you feel it. And people
mm,
are so surprised. They're like, wow, I didn't know I could do this. But we all can. And we could sit in that circle sending energy for hours. We wouldn't run out. We would not
mm,
run out of goodness to give. I notice that people get really afraid to give of themselves. People get really afraid to be too generous. I'm scared that I'm going to burn out. No, this is my gift and I can't just spread it around. But that stifles something within you. You don't feel as alive as you could if you're suppressing your own gifts because you're fearful of sharing them. And I think of
mm,
your chart too, especially. I'm going to throw in a human design term here, but
mhm,
a lot of folks are generators, which is a human design energy type that you can be. And the natural state of a generator is so overflowing with that giving energy. Of course, we're human. We need to take care of ourselves. We do need to sleep. We couldn't sit in that circle for hours sharing energy. Maybe we could if we were very advanced monks in the Himalayas, but I'm not there yet. And I don't know
Mhm.
about you.
No, I don't think so.
But maybe one day. But yes, of course, we take care of ourselves. But we have a lot to give. And it's really beautiful when we show up and we just say, how can I give? Instead
Mm,
of thinking about how can I hold on to this? It's not meant to be held on to, it's meant to be shared.
I love that. Like I'm not going to be able to repeat it as beautifully as you said, but like the fact that we won't ever really run out of good to give, I feel like that just like resonated so deeply when you said that. That really, I feel like that is the underlying fear beneath this is I'm going to give too much of myself. And on one kind of surface level, we can do that. But when it's coming from this heart space and this true, like authentic expression, it doesn't run out. And that just is like so liberating of a feeling. And the more I go about making this podcast, there's two things I recognize. One, everything I'm talking about and everything anyone ever wants to hear about, the episodes that do the best, they have to do with relationships. They have to do with the relationship with ourselves, moving closer to ourselves, and with others. It's all we want to hear about. And the other thing is focusing on giving. The receiving is obviously like it's both, but where I am finding myself moving and becoming so passionate is in how we give to others, how we are in like a constant like flow, and how do we move a little bit more into that space when it feels like prior to this so much has been focused on looking inward, us, our own experiences, which is what I talked about at the, kind of the top of this episode. But I'm noticing more and more, and you kind of bringing it to this level that that's where I really see things going. And I feel like we're kind of moving in that direction and maybe moving back in that direction. I don't know, everything's so cyclical. At one point, you know, we were more communal and there was more of a collective. Um, but I feel it going back there. And I want to hear about what you have to say about the in-person connection and like really talking about this level of like just being with people and being in that give and take and how we really tap into that, how we move back towards this kind of collective mentality when at least in my opinion it feels like things have been so solitary for or individualistic for a long time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we can consider it in the context of late stage capitalism and the US that you and I both live in. We can of course consider it within that context. But I even think that in my perspective, something kind of happened with the pandemic,
Mm,
which is that a lot of folks had their own spiritual awakenings. It was really interesting because 5 years ago, I started being more public about my own spiritual work. I started
mm,
putting it out there professionally. I grew up in Northern California, so I was raised very spiritual.
mhm.
Like it was a normal part of my life to tag along with my mom to a moon circle or to go with my dad to a Dharma talk, like a Buddhist Dharma talk. Like that was very normal for me. And so it was always kind of this part of my life. But I noticed that in the pandemic, when people had more time and space and they were feeling so down, they really turned to spirituality.
Mhm.
And it was a really beautiful thing to witness. And I also was pretty busy during that time, which was funny because I was a newer practitioner, but I was finding myself really flooded with people who were looking for guidance and direction. And my work, by nature of us all being literally separated, was very individualistic. It
Mm,
focused on the one on one, lots of telling people about themselves, lots of what is my purpose, people coming to me and asking that. And it continued on that way for quite some time. But what I noticed is that when things kind of opened back up again, people were very used to practicing in the way they had been practicing, which
mhm,
was alone and at home, reading books, listening to podcasts in their own space. Even
mm,
if folks were joining a larger class, like I had a lot of group meditations over Zoom and things like that, they were still alone in their space doing it. You were still doing it from your bed. And I'm
mhm,
so grateful for that. I have clients all over the world. This literally wouldn't have been possible even 20 years ago. Um, so I'm not knocking that at all. And I do believe in folks having their own practice. But what I do think has happened is that we have forsaken community because we're so interested in convenience.
mm,
And I teach a lot more in person now because for me, it's kind of where it's at. There's nothing better than being in a room full of really kind, sweet people. I always say the best people find me. I have
mm.
other practitioner friends that are like, this client was giving me a hard time. I never have that experience. People are so sweet in my spaces. And it's just beautiful to be in a room with them, but it's inconvenient. I gotta get my butt out the door. I gotta get on the subway. I'm gonna start teaching a new class next month that's farther away than I'm used to going. All of that is inconvenient. I can't just, open my laptop, but it's everything. It doesn't matter. We don't need that convenience. We need that community. We need
Yeah,
it. We can live with one, we cannot live without the other.
yeah, yeah, that's so true. That's very well kind of encapsulated, I feel like, what happened. And yeah, it's to no one's like fault or blame. It's just something that's happened. And we also have so many gifts from the internet and from more of that accessibility. And then we have so many more demands on our time because of that. And so things just feel busier and busier and busier. And
Mm,
it's hard to know how to like break into that and say, you know what, like the inconvenience of this, it's going to be worth it. Like it's going to be, you know, I want to go and do the in-person yoga instead of watching it at home, or I
yes.
want to do a mix of it. It's like so awesome we get to take the benefit of both. But yeah, coming it's like it feels like everyone's kind of like slowly like stepping back out like one foot at a time, like into, more people have come into like in-person therapy. And now people are
Hmm.
like, "Oh, I tried virtual and I want in person and I'm going to drive to you and like I'm going to come in my lunch break or whenever." And there's more of like a kind of like a gumption behind like, no, actually, like I've gotten a taste of this and now I realize exactly what you're saying, that this is like really irreplaceable to be with people really in the same space.
Right. Our energy is meant to mix with the energies around us. It is.
Mhm.
And we talked about when we find ourselves in a more challenging energy, kind of resisting that energy and changing it. But it's okay to let it affect us too.
Mm,
It's okay to live in the world and to be mad at other people and to let them make you mad and you make them mad and you figure it out. That's what it is to love and connect. I pulled up that email that I sent you
mhm,
before our talk today, and in it I did write that if we are open to connection, we're also open to pain. And that's okay. We're meant to experience that. That's okay.
yeah, I feel like that's a thing that so often I have people sitting across from me that have built up so many ways to protect themselves from intimacy, from the risk that comes with being vulnerable and thus being able to deeply connect with someone. And I feel it, I get it. I know it gets painful, it's scary. It's like, you know, no blame in building up those defenses. And also they're in their own pain because they don't have that intimacy and that connection. So we're trying to protect ourselves from this pain, this risk, this vulnerability, and we're experiencing a whole different kind of pain and loneliness. And I believe, and I'd be interested to hear what you think, especially from like kind of incorporating that human design angle, which from what I understand, there's a lot to kind of, as in as there can be with astrology, it's almost like this map a little bit. This chart is like this map of some of the places you're going in this life as well, and some of the lessons that you're kind of experiencing and all of that and challenges you'll face. I feel like we can't face all of those challenges and have all that those growth edges in isolation. We're going to hit a certain wall at some point, and we have to go out and we've got to test what we know, and we've test what we learn, and get to choose to show up as ourself in a new way that feels more aligned. And we've got to do that in relationship.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Yes. Yes, we do. And it's funny when you mention that. I also see the flip side of it.
Mm-hmm.
How sad would it be to go through life feeling like you're the one that has to have it all together and you just have to forge ahead and that no one can help you?
Mm-hmm.
I see people having a really hard time asking for help in this current climate. And we're here to help each other. Again, it goes back to that convenience. Because convenience is so important to us, we
Mm-hmm.
don't want to inconvenience someone else by asking for help. But we're here to help, and they're
Mm-hmm.
here to help, and we're here to journey that cycle together. And yeah, you're so right. There are so many challenges in our birth maps. There are so many challenges that we're here to experience. I always tell people that when I look at a chart, I see so much goodness. And if you've made it this far into the interview, that will be no surprise. I see
Mm-hmm.
so much goodness. It's so much sweetness. It's so many gifts. It's so many blessings. It's like every person that I look at is at the core of their being so excited to come here and so excited to live life. But the flip side of those blessings is challenges. There are
Mm-hmm.
always, there's a real balance to the chart. There is a high expression of gifts and of not even gifts, but traits. You can be someone that's really confident, a leader, someone that's here to speak change into existence. But the other side of that coin is that maybe you're kind of a pain in the butt sometimes. Maybe you're kind of annoying. Maybe people find it difficult to hear what you have to say. And it's all about just kind of like letting those challenges come to you, looking at them. And then this is what I find helpful in my own personal practice, saying, where am I causing myself pain in this challenge? Because maybe life is bringing you a challenge, but maybe you're digging in your heels and making that challenge much worse than it has to
Mm-hmm.
be. Maybe you are, could be that you are fighting your own nature, could be that you're trying to do something in a way that is not true to who you are, could be that you're living out some pattern that you've lived 100 times that feels more comfortable to exist in, but is actually quite painful. It could be a number of things. But when I think of challenges, that's what I always come back to. Again, it's one of those easier said than done things.
Yeah, that's so, I mean, I absolutely love your, I don't know, a word that I really like is like optimism. I think it can be kind of used in very restrictive ways. Like I feel like it's a really expansive word, honestly, to describe. And there's this like deep optimism and like eye for beauty and for love and for appreciation that you have, and like gratitude just flows from you, like really it's very
Thank
evident.
you.
And I think that that is such a impactful stance, and that really kind of, you are almost like an embodiment of what we're talking about here today, or what I'm hoping like through this conversation people can walk away from feeling more inspiration or maybe ideas or maybe something's come to them, something they want, they're feeling called to, or just really focusing on that love and connection around them. And I'm curious how you think we might kind of redefine our own personal spiritual practices to incorporate more aspects of love and connection with others. And if you have any like really beautiful example of this happening or something that really illustrates it, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for saying that. That's so kind. I would describe myself as violently optimistic.
Yes, yes.
I I am so happy to be here. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so lucky. I believe there are strategies that you can take to kind of invite that feeling into your life. The first one would just be noticing when things are good.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you recommend that to clients all
Mhm.
the time. If you're constantly trying to escape your life, you can't notice what's happening. If
Yeah.
you are stuck on the phone, if you are stuck ruminating, you cannot see the goodness that's there. You'll miss the baby smiling at you on the subway. You'll miss the dog that did something funny across the street. You'll miss a spot of sunlight hitting a tree and it's just beautiful and you want to cry. If you
Yeah.
notice it, it's there. It is
Yes.
there. And I think that that transforms a life and it doesn't cost a thing. It
Yes.
doesn't cost a thing. And it does take time, but it doesn't take that much time. I think it's time that everyone has. So that's
Mhm.
where I would start. And it's, again, easier said than done in the
Mm.
society that we exist in, but it's
Yeah.
powerful. And you mentioned too vulnerability. I think if you can be vulnerable in that noticing, that really opens the heart. If you can see the tree that's being hit by the sunlight and you can be vulnerable enough to say, "Oh my God, that is so beautiful. I'm just going to cry in this park right now." Then do it. Do it.
And that's the moment, yeah, you get to share it. You can open yourself up to getting to share it with someone else too, which is so I went on a walk a while ago with one of my like best friends, and we were walking, talking, catching up, like we're just one topic to the next, whatever. And then all of a sudden, I don't remember if it was me or her, one of us goes, "Oh my god, that tree is gorgeous," because it was like putting on a show. It was so stunning with the
Yes.
sun, and I go, whichever one of us it was, we were like, "I was about to say that. I just that tree stood out to me," and we were like, "Oh my god, that's our favorite tree we've seen. Like this something about it is so stunning," and it was such a like fun moment of being like, "Okay, we're really focused on this tree," and then like boom, we like went back to talking and like whatever, but I have seen that tree since then too, and I think about it every time, and that it like builds on itself. This now I had that sweet moment with my friend, and I remember it when I see this, and I, would maybe send her a photo or something. That's like another moment of connection, and I just think I agree with you. Like, this is something where for some people listening, this noticing practice is going to say like sound like, okay, yeah, I can do that. I already have moments where I feel kind of silly cuz I get teary-eyed over like the sunlight or something like that. And so they might be like, I'm ready to kind of put even more intention to this. And then other people might feel like, I don't move through life this way. I don't think about
Mhm.
things. That just means like there is more to practice there. And I really believe like I love all the different examples you gave, because I would think that if someone really sits and takes a moment to think about like what are my favorite things? Like what are those? There's going to be something on that list that's like, okay, I can pay more attention to this. For a lot of people it could be animals, pets. Like,
Yes.
at least where I live in Austin, there are so many dogs like everywhere. And so there's a lot of opportunities in the day to notice a cute little dog. And it's like, if that's your entry point, that's your entry point. Like, I think what you were saying too is it grows off of itself. And something I love so much about what we're talking about is the accessibility of rooting into these kinds of ideas and this noticing, and the accessibility of like the divinity of things
Mhm.
being in our everyday experience. Because
Mhm.
again, like I said, spirituality sometimes can feel really inaccessible, or like a high barrier to entry, or I don't know, and what does it feel like for me, and how do I practice this? And there's these people that seem to have all these amazing experiences, and um, it can sometimes feel far off. And I just think everything you've been saying and sharing today is that things, the spirituality, the real divinity, the core of that is so everyday and is so just present in the fact that we're here and we're experiencing a life. And I just think that, again, it's violently optimistic and it's so beautiful, but it's also truthful. So I think
Yeah.
when something is truthful like that, it it resonates and we can feel it.
Yeah. Can I just share one more story that's popping
Yes.
into my mind that perfectly encapsulates the divine love and the everyday? It's one of my favorite things that's ever happened to me. And it was so small, but I was just grabbing a veggie burger with my husband after shopping at Whole Foods. It was January 1st, and we were getting back into the swing of things in New York, kind of trudging through the cold, but doing our errands together. And as we were waiting for this veggie burger to come out, the person who rang us up turns to us and goes, "Can I share something with you?" And I should stop here and say that as loving as I think I am, my husband is a whole nother level. Like, my husband was just sent to this planet to be a ball of energy and light and love, and he cannot walk into a room unnoticed. And it's such a blessing. But this person turns to us and says, "Can I share something with you?" And we say, "Of course." And they look at us and they get teary and they say, "Last night I celebrated New Year's Eve and I got to kiss someone at midnight who is the love of my life. And I've never, ever had that in my life before. And I'm just so grateful." And they started to cry. And
Mm,
it was just the best gift that someone could have given me, to
mm,
go through life. When I say going through life open hearted, vulnerable, that is what it is.
mm.
That is what it is. And it was just this avalanche of beautiful loving energy, and that they got to experience, that then we got to experience. We got to give it back, say, "We're so happy for you, congratulations, that's wonderful." And it was this tiny moment that showed me everything that I needed to know about being alive.
Wow. That is so beautiful. That is a perfect way to cap off this episode. I've enjoyed talking to you so much. I think there's so much good stuff for people. And if whoever's listening feels that and wants to share how this has, like what they've reflected on, how this has landed for them, I would love to hear from you guys listening. I always want that and encourage that. And any way that people can find you, please share it with us. And I will also have everything linked below. But what do you want people to know if they want to keep up with you?
Yeah, so I don't do much on social media anymore, but you can follow me at Graciela_Razor on Instagram. I have some good old stuff on there. I think sometimes we forget that we created things and that it does still exist,
Uh
even
huh.
if we are not still posting currently. I really, as Hayden opened this episode, I live for my newsletter. That's
Mm.
where, like, I really feel like my heart gets to go. And you can find that on my website, which is gracielarrazor.com. I also have a contact form there. I don't do that many one-on-one sessions anymore, but if you feel super called, reach out. I always find that the right people make their way to me. And then if you're in New York City, my favorite thing of all, my classes, which I do post about those, and I do send out newsletters letting folks know when I have classes. But I would love to hear from everyone. And if you're in person, I would love for you to get a little inconvenient and come see me.
I love that. That's so awesome. Thank you again so much for being here. This has been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for listening. Bye.